We were talking about P.D. James, or I was anyway, as the person who really got this whole series of author talks started. And she said to me that particular evening 13 years ago when we started this program, that the thing that starts a novel with her is a place. Something in the landscape will get her going. She may be on the beach and see, I mean, at this point, I'm trying to remember. There was a book, for example, that she wrote in London about a publishing company.
Yes, yes.
That was the book in
The beautiful house on the Thames.
That's it. And so with her, it's always something like that that gets her going, rather than an idea or an incident. Since all of your books have moved to a different, focused on a different part of England, and you've got multitudinous counties and places to go, what is it that sets you off with the story?
I think it makes it more exciting and more interesting. You have more that you can bring into a book. The history of each area, the feel of each area, the landscape. If you stay in London, it's, yes, you're in Clerkenwell now and Westminster, the next book, but it's all in the same setting, all in the same feel of a big city. So we send Rutledge out to do the kinds of things that he can't do in London. And he's by himself. He doesn't have Bowles looking over his shoulder.
Superintendent Bowles being the evil supervisor.
Oh, yes. Well, he's like so many people's boss. I've had so many people say to us, I know Bowles. I work for him.
Well, he's protecting himself, you know,
yes,
in preference to, or first, rather, not in preference necessarily, but
and also
his own ends.
There's also a couple of things that you have. You have a completely different cast of characters. It's not just the location, but the effect that Cornwall has as opposed to Norfolk on your characters and their traditions and where they're from and all of those kinds of things. The other one is the weather. As you know, each Inspector Rutledge book is 1 month apart, and so you go through like the Cold Treachery in the winter time and Long Shadow in the winter time, and then you start coming into the spring, you got the summer and those kinds of things. So you have the seasons, the locations, and then the characters, the people. Caroline, we were going through that town. Remember the town where nobody was?
Oh, yes. Yes, that turned out to be a Long Shadow. You went into this lovely little brick town, and there was nobody there. Not a dog, not a cat, not a person, but a very interesting little town. And one of the lanes was named Todd Lane. So we thought, oh, this is interesting. We got out, walked around. We decided to go up to the pub on at the top of the hill, knocked on the door, nobody came. So all we saw in this town was at the very end a stream of sheep came out of the pasture up on the hill, flowed past our car, went down across the hillside and down to the brook. That was all we saw.
Never a person?
Except for the one man behind the sheep.
A shepherd?
I assume he was a shepherd. He didn't look like the standard shepherd.
Well, I understand why you're doing this month apart thing. You can't really take Rutledge too fast away from the war. I mean, if so much of Rutledge is rooted in his World War II experience that
and in his shell shock.
Right.
Once you're in 1945, you know, somebody needs to get a grip somewhere.
Well, I mean, I think that's always a question when you're doing a series is, you know, how fast do you age everything? And certainly with Rutledge, to make Hamish the voice of the shell shock believable, he can't suddenly be in 1930 and, you know, still be chatting over his shoulder to this poor Scot that he shot.
Actually, you talk to psychologists and they say it's possible.
Really?
That usually shell shock doesn't go away. And I remember as a young child in the town I grew up in, seeing a man very much like the drunkard in A Test of Wills, all of a sudden step off the sidewalk and start directing traffic. And he had been a vet in World War I. He was shell-shocked, and some sound We didn't know what it was. I don't think anybody did, but some sound would send him back 5 or 10 minutes, and all of a sudden he would come back to the present and walk off. I was frightened. I had never seen anything like this. I was young.
But from a literary point of view, do you think that readers, would put up with him 12, 15 years later? And of course, at some point, you're going to bump into World War II if you were to go along really quickly, and then you'd have a whole new set of problems.
If I lived that long, and Charles lives that long.
How many books would that be at 12? No. But I think my question was really, do you decide on the place and then make a story, or do you think of a story and then decide which part of England you want to go to?
I think place comes first.
Yes.
I mean, you walk into a place and there's a feel, and we've gotten into trouble a couple of times over dinner saying, well, do you think you could hide the body here, or would you prefer to hide it somewhere else? And in the dining room, there's consternation. But that starts it.
It can still be character driven in terms of the story itself, but that's where you start.
Yes.
Is with the place, and then, I mean, I look at Wings of Fire that took place in Cornwall, and I don't really see that book taking place anywhere else.
Yes, that's true.
No, I agree with you. I think that one is very much rooted. It isn't a. I didn't mean to imply that I thought you had a Daphne du Maurier clone there at all, but I remember selling the book. It was sort of fun to talk about the fact that you were in du Maurier country. And if I remember right, there was a house. It was really kind of a country house drama, wasn't it? So there was that same Rebecca kind of thing. Because, see, I've always thought Rebecca was really about the house, and the death of the house was really the end of the novel, and the people, wasn't about Rebecca.
That's right.
It was really about Manderley.
And we've been to Minnebilly, or I have, when I went to England one time. Daphne du Maurier, in her book, Vanishing Cornwall, said that people had a right to trespass if they didn't disturb anything and had an interest. I took her at her word. So when my husband and I got to the area where Minnebilly stood, the gates were closed, and I said, well, there's another way to get around. I remember it from the books. So we went down to the cove,
right,
where the boat was.
Yes, I've been there too. Right.
Yeah, and I thought if she comes out and says anything, we can only say, you gave us permission.
How long ago was that?
Oh, that was, when did I first go to England? Oh.
Careful.
Oh, I guess 25 years ago. Was it longer than that? Oh, well.
I'm being politically correct.
I only asked because she's been gone for a while. In fact, I think my visit there was after she had died. So I don't
she was still alive, very elderly. She didn't live there at that time.
But anyway, I do agree with you that it's very much a Cornwall book. Now, your new book, you start out in Fountains Abbey in Yorkshire, but then a lot of the book descends to the interestingly shaped village in Berkshire. I love the fact, one of my staff commented to me about the horseshoe shape of the village, and was that unusual? And I was trying to remember, but wasn't that kind of a tendency of developers and builders in England, like a Regency Terrace or the Royal Crescent in Bath?
I think when Miss Tomlin decided to build the leper colony, she thought of them facing inward to each other since they were isolated from the world. And the fact that it was horseshoe shaped worked well with the horse. And we sort of put all this together. And but the reason that it started in Fountains Abbey, do you remember the cover for A Long Shadow, the original cover?
Yeah.
With the Abbey silhouetted. And I looked at that, and Charles looked at that, and we said, we've got to set a book there. And I said to the editor at that time, Carolyn Marino, can we keep this cover for another book? And she said, no, because we've already done publicity with this cover. And I said, well, that's okay, we'll find another jacket. But there was something about that cover that all of a sudden sowed seeds. That's how it happens.